Hello ladies and gentlemen. This video will be dedicated to an interesting option, the so-called Panov attack. The Panov attack arises after the opening moves e4, c6, d4, d5, e takes d, c takes d and c4. This opening is mostly used by players who like to attack, and the ensuing complications are often very interesting and both sides have their chances. What I'm recommending to you, however, is aimed at drawing the game. I will say this outright. But I think that my recommendations are very sound and there's nothing you need to be afraid of as black. After c4, black plays knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, and here white is at a crossroads. There is bishop g5 and knight f3. Let's have a look at knight f3. This move is a very old move and it is a well-known, more or less theoretical draw. If black wants to play for win, I recommend you to have a butchers at g6. I did not really analyze it in the course of this series. I think that the positions are interesting. White might be a wee bit better in some positions, but this should be quite playable for black. And an interesting attempt to play for a win. The move I recommend is what I think is the objectively best move, which however should end in a draw. This is the move bishop g4. And we will see a long variation. C takes d5, knight takes, queen b3, bishop takes f3, g takes, e6, queen b7, knight takes d4, bishop b5, takes b5, queen c6, king e7, queen takes b5, queen d7, knight takes d5, queen takes d5. Here white has two moves, either bishop g5 or queen takes d5. After bishop g5, f6, queen takes d5, ed, bishop e3, king e6, long castle, bishop b4, king b1, rook hd8. There is not much to say about these moves, the position is not very interesting. Rook d3, rook d7, defending everything along the 7th rank, and preparing to double the rooks along the d-file. Rook c1, rook a8, the position is equal. If 15, queen takes d5, then we take, short castle, king e6. Now white has two moves, rook e1 or bishop e3. After bishop e3 we play bishop e7, rook ac1 and rook ac8. And it is important to note that the a7 pawn is not really hanging because we have rook a8 and the a2 pawn is hanging as well. So this is no problem. If rook e1 check, we play king f5, rook d1, rook d8, bishop e3, rook d7, rook ac1, bishop e7, rook d4, g5. This is a smart move, defending against all sorts of rook f4 checks. Rook a4, bishop f6, black controls all the squares in the center. b4, d4, rook check, king g6, bishop d2, rook e8, king f1. It's not really interesting, but it is what it is. d3, rook d1, h6. And we've been following the game Adams versus Dreyev, which ended peacefully soon after. And I think there are many games that almost ended in the same fashion. So it is a very well-known line, a line black has not to fear, but it's hard to play for a win. The main move these days is bishop to g5 instead of knight f3. And here white really wants to have a fight, but I think black does not have to pick up the gauntlet. The variation that I recommend is aimed at drawing the game, which is kind of sad, but I was in a bit of a dilemma here. Because the problem is the following. There is nothing wrong with playing an isolated queen-pawn structure after c takes, bishop takes and e6. This is very fine and is a main line, but the arising positions are very complex, very complicated, and would require a lot of explanation first. Then there are many players who do not like playing against isolated pawns, so I couldn't satisfy their needs. Thirdly, I think the payoff is only a small part of the repertoire, and jumping into this jungle simply feels like a wrong practical decision. Then there is another variation that deserves attention. Instead of taking on c4, there is this crazy move knight e4, which is a mess. I give some shallow analysis in the ebook. I didn't analyze it properly. It is just a start. So if you are interested, check out what I analyzed there. It is obviously not complete because I do not recommend this. But it is very interesting, and as far as theory is concerned, I think black is doing fine at the moment. But this variation is rarely played at the Grandmaster level, so it's hard to say. I didn't dare to analyze it on my own, because it's even too hot for me. I mean, I might try it in a game, but it is not something that I would recommend as the main recommendation, so I only showed some lines in the ebook. What remains is my actual recommendation, which, as I said earlier, is aimed at a draw. Which is a bit sad, but yeah. It is the move d takes c4. And now bishop takes c4. And queen takes d4. A very greedy move. White takes on d4, knight b5 is not a problem. After queen b6, bishop e3, queen a5. White has two moves, queen d2 or bishop d2. After bishop d2, queen d8, bishop f4, e5, queen d8, king d8, long castle, bishop d7, bishop g3 and rook c8. Black lost his castling right, but black is a pawn up and there's nothing white can really do, so black is already slightly better. If queen d2, we take, bishop takes and rook b8, and again black is doing fine. So queen takes d4 is the move, knight takes, long castle e5. White has two moves, f4 and knight f3. The latter is absolutely harmless. After takes, g takes, bishop e6, takes, rook he1, h6, bishop h4, bishop b4, takes, and king f7. Black is completely fine. So f4 is the best move. Bishop g4, knight f3, takes, and this is an interesting position because on Grandmaster level people have occasionally played rook c8, which I think is known to be better for white. So why would you do that? What no one plays is the rook long castle, and to be honest I have literally no idea why no one plays this move. because I have checked it in depth, and I also asked a strong player, and we all agreed there is no advantage for white, so why not play it? I think there's nothing wrong with this move, and I fully believe in its soundness. Castles, fe5, knight f3. White has 3 moves, rook d8, ef6 and bishop takes f6. Let's start with e takes. We take on d1, rook takes g5, rook f1, gf, h4, knight d6, rook takes f6 and knight to d8. Currently we're a pawn up, but obviously we cannot hold on to the f7 pawn forever. White will take it at some point, and the position is very close to a draw. After bishop takes f6, we take on d1, rook takes f6, takes, bishop h6 check, king c2, knight e5, bishop d5, knight g4, rook d4 and knight takes f6, and after bishop f7 it's time to agree to a draw. The critical or most critical move is rook takes d8. King takes, and here bishop f6 is the only serious move. Rook d1 and e takes f6 are harmless and would probably transpose the lines we have just seen. Bishop takes, g takes, e takes, knight e5, bishop d5, king c7, rook, rook g1, and here I think you need to be a bit precise. I analyzed bishop h6 and this might be a wee bit imprecise. After king c2, king b8, rook g3, bishop f4, there is this annoying move, rook g7. When after bishop h6, there is bishop takes f7. And the problem is that after bishop g7, fg, knight f7, takes h8, takes, king d3, king c7, king e4, the white king is marching in, and this is to be avoided. So instead of bishop h6, I quite like the move h5. And I think this is the move that secures the draw. White has a couple of moves, h3 and king b1. Say king b1, bishop b4. Now white has 2 moves, rook g7 or knight to b5. Let's check knight b5, king b6, rook g5, knight d7, bishop takes f7 and knight takes f6, and once again the position is a draw. If rook g7, black can take on c3 and play rook f8. This is very solid. Black can play almost anything in this position. Knight g4 is, I think, the easiest way to save the draw and then take on f6. Because knight g4 hits h2 and f6, one of these pawns will fall. The king on c7 is close to the action. There's no reason why black would be worse here. If white plays h3 instead of king b1, we play bishop c5, hitting the rook, rook g7, and now there is a difference after bishop f8, bishop f7, takes, everybody takes everything, king d2, or we can play king d6, and white is far away from f5. The position is very simple, and yeah, it could be a draw any moment. So I think this bishop g5 line and the Panov offers something for everybody. For the tacticians there is knight e4. For the solid players there is the line that I recommend, and for ambitious players who want a positional fight rather than a tactical mess, they can take on c4 and play e6 with a very complicated strategic fight ahead. What I recommend is the simplistic approach, which will find some adherents, but it will not please all of you, I'm sure. But that's a problem in this position. The styles differ here, and you need to find a variation that suits you. Saying that, I'm fully convinced that castles in this position is a good move for black. It cannot be refuted, and black is just fine. You have to find one or two precise moves, but the draw is yours. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you anon.